What's going on, Club?
Hi.
You sound ecstatic to be here.
No saucy game.
Ooh. All right, there'll be more. You'll forget about it.
Mm-hmm.
Traveling to Dorado.
I'm gonna give everybody some time to kind of trickle in.
Stop the payload.
Wait, so
Wait,
this room, we're allowed to pick whatever character in our roles, right?
Yeah, tonight. Yeah. Like I said, though, it's gonna be a harder scrim.
Yeah.
Assuming, who are you? Sorry. Or assume? All right, they're gone. Interesting. What's going on, Complex?
Bullshit.
What's up, Greedy? Just letting everybody trickle in.
Let's get you healed up.
Oh, you're fine.
I will not waste this chance.
Helden sterben nicht.
What's up, STT?
What I missed?
Nothing yet. Still letting people kind of trickle in for now. I'm settling our scrim for tonight.
We're all soldiers now.
Score 0-2. Switching sides. Ready for battle.
All right.
Everything that was meant to happen does. Eventually.
All right, so we're gonna get started now. It's 1:40, so I'll probably push the time that we would have been doing this back a little bit, but I don't know how far because I still have to get more homework done and stuff like that. So if you guys look at the Discord, if you have a chance, we're going to be playing against the 3K team tonight. This is going to be the last night of kind of like trialing and everything like that. So either late tonight or tomorrow afternoon, I'll be kind of sending out announcements saying what we're going to be doing going forward, and explaining the situation, and whatever small changes need to be made, we'll make it then. So that doesn't mean that everything's, of course, going to be locked in after tonight. But you could just feel a little bit more secure about, your place on the team and stuff like that. Unfortunately, I can't like say that things are going to be hard locked in because you could always have something come up and we could always have to make changes throughout. You never know. Life is a bitch sometimes, so it just be like that. But tonight will be the last night of officially trialing, and then I'll be sending out student athlete code of conducts and stuff like that. So, just try your best, do what you can. We'll be fielding multiple looks, and we'll be starting prep at 7. I suggest that everybody get there at 7 tonight, so that I can, have time to actually go through everybody like I want to, because last time people showed up kind of last minute and it forced me to rush through a few of you guys. Even though that hour time block is pretty important because it's the time block that we kind of get to sit down and talk about, thoughts on what you can play, what you think you want to play, and what I think you should be playing and what we could do for the team. They're going to kind of adjust as time goes on. So like last night I did my first like small group instead of individual, where I took all of the supports that were there at the time and kind of talked about their roles and what I think they should be kind of like looking to play and work on to work around each other. And that's something that I'll be doing. Like I'll be taking the DPS together and telling them what we need and what they should maybe be looking at doing. And I'll be doing that with the tanks as well. Just because as time goes on, we won't really need as much one-on-one time. We may need it here or there, but not as much. So let's get into this defense on Dorado, because Dorado is one of those maps, like I said, I was talking about yesterday, where Winston can almost be run on it regardless of meta because it's so high ground dependent, which means when you're running Ryan Zarya, you really have to be careful about how you're playing it. And there's very specific points that you want to try to hold because there's only very select few spots that Ryan Zarya works on this map. So just talking about map overviews to start, I was talking about it a little bit yesterday, but the best defensive point on point A is kind of like this choke point right here for Ryan Zarya. It can be really good for Winston Diva too, but Winston Diva can also take advantage of this kind of like early street space to bully you and kind of like waste your time a little bit, or at least get more like ult charge. So it can be really important that, that Ryan Zarya finds their positioning as quickly as possible and get as much value out of these kind of like disadvantage areas as possible. So Ryan Zarya, generally your composition is going to have other things, of course, but every composition in this game is based off the tanks first, because tanks determine kind of like where it's safe to play and what you can and cannot do. So our composition isn't only Ryan Zarya. We also have Genji, Tracer, Ana, Lucio, but our structure is the Ryan Zarya. That's going to determine, who, like where the shielding is and where your safety is and stuff like that. So generally speaking, this high ground is a good place to start because it'll allow you to poke at the enemies, but also because none of these other spots are going to be quite as good to hold for Ryan or Zarya. That's just because there's so many flank routes and so many options for the enemy team to kind of like get around you and stuff like that. So it's really easy for them to kind of like punish your positioning if you hold any further than under this choke bridge right here. So generally speaking, you're going to want to take some time, poke along this high ground and stuff like that. And as soon as the enemies get to like this part, or maybe even a little bit further, you're going to make a really fast rotation down these stairs and around. And you're going to try to be holding them here. Now, these are your corners. This is a little kind of like cubby area here. But your corner is really going to kind of start here. So you kind of have two staging grounds to back up to for your Ryan and your Zarya. You have to be wary of there's an open space right here on the side that can be punishing, which is why this little cubby area up front, this number 1 right here, isn't as good as the, number 2 right here. because from this angle, the only flank position is the staircase right here, right? This well back here, which can be checked by literally anybody because there's so much kind of like walk-up room that you can see. And also, for the most part, you can see the enemies coming from that zone if they kind of walk into this, I don't know what you want to call it, but I'm going to call it like an atrium area underneath here. You'll be able to see them going under, and if they go really under, then they're just going to be gone from the fight for a large amount of time, and it's going to waste a lot of time. So if the enemies kind of haven't appeared for a while, you can assume that they're going under, they're coming from this well area over here, and that it might be something that you want to keep an eye on. This map is great for Widowmaker because there's so much space. This is like kind of one of the OG Widowmaker maps in a way. Rialto has kind of like become the ultimate Widowmaker map, but this is one of the earlier ones. So you can position a Widow up here, or you can position a Widow over here, or if you really wanted to, you could position your Widow down here. What these rotations do is they allow you to kind of like check the same general area, but give the enemy a difficult time of guessing where the Widow is going to be, so they don't know where to put their defensive resources until they kind of like physically spot her out. So Genji Tracer is going to be perfectly fine because they can just play a little bit closer to the cart, but long range characters are going to be great on this map because of it. Some quick asides about the map, just so that we're all on the same page. There is a wall over here that you can climb over. This is very good for kind of like Genji Hanzo on attack. You can stage kind of like a pincer attack if you're able to get over here. Another strategy is using a Symmetra to teleport the entire team over this wall. This is why it's very important to constantly be holding the tab key in downtimes to scout any potential swaps, because if the enemies manage to push the cart to under bridge and then they get held, they may try to do something funky, like TP their entire team over this back wall and take you by surprise. It's not something that you're going to see very often, but it's something you should be aware of. So this is kind of like a little wall that you can get over. Widowmaker can grapple over this. Sombra can translocate over this. Reaper can TP up here. So there's all sorts of, anybody who has any type of vertical mobility can really get value on this map just by kind of like getting over there and creating a quick and easy flank into their backline. This map is also quite good for Pharah. Pharah is good on maps where there's a lot of tall buildings that can act as sky cover for her, and there's a decently high hitbox or a skybox. So you can play Pharah on this map if you're interested in it, flying her around these roofs or flying her around this bell tower and stuff like that. She's a little bit limited to those two zones. I mean, when you get into second point, she'll have, her options of being on the roof again. But getting into third point, you really just can't play Pharah at all, unfortunately. So generally speaking, we're going to want our DPS to kind of play a little bit of a zoned back defense in sort of ways. Tracer wants to maybe be roaming this staircase area, while our other DPS kind of focuses down main. The main reason that Tracer wants to focus on the staircase area is because this is another great safety zone for her. It's a space that can be really good for her to kind of just like linger in. Just because there's the health pack, it's a mega, so it comes back a little bit slower, but there's a health pack and there's access to the back line and stuff like that. So Tracer can kind of blink up here if, like, let's say the enemies are coming down main, and she can poke at them along their way, or poke at them once they've kind of faced front on the team, and then she has the option of dropping. If she gets poked out, she can just blink back to the team very safely. If she wants to still try to play aggressive, she can grab Mega and then go underneath to try to keep pressure. There's plenty of options for Tracer to be playing on that flank route, which means there's plenty of options for other flankers to be playing on that flank route in general. I'm just talking about what we're running in this composition specifically. So just something to keep in mind. So yeah, our Anas are generally going to play way back there. Zen is going to play from a similar area. Bap will probably play from a similar area. Mercy would probably be flying between these like high grounds, or staging between this wall right here with the door, or this wall with the green scooter, to try to break line of sight and stuff like that. But this is just to show you the small gap that I was talking about that you need to be aware of. This bridge as well is going to be a spot that you should be aware of as DPS and support specifically, because this is going to be like if they're playing a Widowmaker, if they're playing somebody who could put pressure on the other team on your team from range, this is where they're going to sit. So Note, all of the things that I've said for our team in terms of like respecting the enemy team, we should be able to use as well. So when we're playing into our attack, we should be, if we have a long range character, we should be playing from this bridge. If we have somebody who can chunk in like Junkrat or Reaper or something like that, or a Mei, they can come from over here. If we want to run a sim strat, we can run it over this wall. If we want to run kind of like a flank on this left side, we can use the Mega to try to kind of like allocate resources to our DPS or our tanks or whatever. Everything that I say for both attackers and defenders, regardless of if I say enemy or our team, it's valid information to try to keep in mind, you know? I don't want to jump ahead because this game mode starts just whenever I guess they ready up. So I'm I'm nervous I'm gonna skip ahead 20 seconds and we're gonna be mid-fight. Does anybody have any questions so far?
Attackers incoming in 30 seconds. 5,
All right, here we go.
3, 2, 1. Attackers incoming. Stop the payload.
There's a chance that I might not make it to the stream today.
You're throwing. Who has music?
What?
Who has music?
I
No,
hear
I'm
music.
kidding. Yeah, that's coming from my side. You
Oh,
wanna shut
okay,
it off?
okay. No, it's all good. I thought I was like tripping.
No.
Oh, you're talking about me. I was like,
No, yeah. Just I guess let me know before if you can't make it. There's nothing you can really do about it as long as
yeah, it's my mom's birthday today, so.
Oh, so for your dad's birthday you don't care, but for your mom's birthday, I see how it is. I
Wait,
see.
what? Wait, huh?
You showed up for scrims on your dad's birthday.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we celebrated like before, but we're doing this tonight, so.
Uh-huh.
Well, even if
What?
you can show up only late, we'll be running from 8 to 10.
Yep.
Yeah, we'll just do our best with putting everybody in as much as we can.
Wait, toxic. Wait.
So this is a good poke for now. It would be nice to see a little bit more of a spread, but I guess we're playing against the Sombra, and this is where we really started to try to like bundle up and collapse onto the Sombra more. So that might be why we're not kind of like spreading out to poke and, you know, keep this high ground clear. But against a traditional composition, we're going to want to keep this high ground clear as much as possible, so that we can actually like control the fight. If the enemies are allowed to get up here, they're allowed to gain equal footing and kind of like poking back and forth, especially as like a Hanzo, because if the Hanzo hits even a body shot on one of our squishies and the Sombra like calls it or something like that, or if the Hanzo calls it and the tanks can follow up on that, then we can just start collapsing from just even a simple body shot. If the Hanzo's not up here, however, it's really hard for him to hit the body shot, and then the tanks can't dive in as readily because he won't be in a good position to follow up. So let's say if the Hanzo's on the low ground, he hits a body shot. If the tanks dive the high ground, we can just back up so that the Hanzo can't see us, and then we're just fighting the tanks. But if the Hanzo's on the high grounds and the tanks dive us, then we can't do anything about shutting down the Hanzo's line of sight. How do we make this rotation? I want to look a little bit closer at that. Okay, so we come across top, and then we drop down. All right, so this needs to be something that we are kind of like on the same page about. If you want to drop from bridge, that's fine, but you need to say like, oh, we're going to drop from bridge, because what's happening here is we're getting a lag between our tanks, and it doesn't look like a big issue because we're playing against not a great team, but better teams will be able to kind of like punish small disconnects like this where the Zarya has a small frame of time where she can't actually see anybody to potentially bubble them. So we want to make sure that we're being cohesive in these drops and communicating when our rotations are coming through. So this is kind of tagging off of what I was talking about with King's Row yesterday, right? Where Orion's backing up causes us to reposition, and then it causes everybody to reposition. And the repositioning means nobody is kind of like comfortable or in their preferred spots. So in Overwatch, positioning is very fluid, it's very relative, but there's going to be a lot of static positions that we want to hold. So this is going to be our first static position. We can call this 1. And then we're going to want to do a preset rotation to static position 2. Because during this rotation, we have to make sure that everybody is being protected along the way. And that there's nobody who's going to be exposed, which has to be a practice thing, because throwing in variables during a transition against an enemy team who's doing random things doesn't equal coordinated team play Overwatch. It just equals chaos. And then that'll really just be like leaving you guys to fend for yourself and like carry on your pure mechanical skill pretty much. But we want to get you guys to play as a cohesive unit and be able to depend on one another to make up for what you're lacking, right? So in order to make up for a lack of mechanical skill or a lack of game sense or a lack of experience, we want to make sure that we're rotating a specific set route to a specific set location so that everybody is on the same page with where everybody's going to be, and nobody has to do things like, you know, guessing where the supports are going to be or keeping track of every little variable mid-fight or something like that. So this drop from bridge is risky because it's not like being communicated properly, and it's not a preset thing, right? So if it's not preset, you have to over communicate if possible, without cluttering, like without blocking anybody else from speaking. You want to just make sure that people understand what you're saying. So like dropping onto cart from bridge, like, oh, I'm gonna drop onto cart from bridge, I'm gonna clear bridge, and then I'm gonna drop onto cart from bridge. Next, I'm gonna go to the bridge next. Okay, I'm gonna drop onto cart. 3, 2, 1. Things like that can really like help this lag, like help this to be prevented, you know, because you don't want this disconnect. It doesn't look like much, but it can work out to be a lot, especially because now look at this ante, right? So your Zarya drops late, so you push forward to try to get her behind you again, and then you drop your shield and everybody gets anti. Very, very small thing. Very, very small thing. But whether the Ana sees the window or not, that doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether she was good or lucky. She still hits it. Pinbacks, we talked about that yesterday. Just don't do them. STT, they're really bad and they really compromise the kind of like tank line as a whole, and they just open everybody else up to getting punished. What you should be trusting is like the rest of your team to be able to collapse on the people behind you, because if somebody's in your team and you're holding the shield, like let's go back a few seconds, right? Maybe a few too many, but I'm gonna. So if you're holding your shield, healing can't get through, especially from like if they're playing an Ana. So once this comes up, right, the ante's down, so your team is at a little bit of a disadvantage. I'm going to get the overlays on. But if you're able to shield this off right here and prevent the rest of the team from helping, these two tanks are essentially fighting a 2v4, right? If you just kind of shield off any potential healing and make it so that they're isolated. The rest of your team should be able to use their bubbles to, you know, cleanse whoever is really important and, you know, work around the bubble as much as possible to either break it or focus fire down the diva or monkey. Like this is where kind of like the team cohesion then comes in. Like, who's our shot caller, right? Usually right now it's been kind of like John's been the shot caller. We're gonna need probably another shot. Genetic's been doing a good job of kind of like supplementing mid team or like in between fights with kind of information and stuff like that. But I think for certain lineups we're gonna need other shot callers and stuff like that, other people to start kind of working on that skill a little bit. But like we gotta focus fire whoever John is calling in this situation, cleanse whoever is like critical. So we cleanse on STT so we can potentially get healing on him. Great. Okay, now we gotta focus fire people down and make sure that we're body blocking for the right targets. Winston has cleave damage, so there's not a ton you can do to block his damage, but you gotta do your best to kind of like step in his way and like pressure him down if anything. Tracer has to be like getting out of the way so that the supports don't have to worry about her so much. So she should be going this way because the enemy tanks are looking this way. Ana's going to be backing up a little bit, and then Zarya is going to be kind of like collapsing on them with the Tracer from behind. Lucio maybe speeds the Ana so that she can get out even safer than she was before. Meanwhile, STT shields forward, can get some healing maybe from John once he gets a line of sight. And then these tanks wind up getting burned down because they just jumped past the shield into the enemy team with no backup. Very, very kind of like meticulous team play stuff, but it all falls apart as soon as you turn around and pin. The team doesn't even get the opportunity to try to get into that team play until they turn around and pin. I can't talk to Complex about speeding his Ana out because we never got to do that play properly. So hold the front line, block healing if the tanks dive behind you, if you see the opportunity, but also like mind your positioning as a whole in relation to the team, because you want to give some people space, right? You want to give your Ana space from the enemies. Okay, so we fall apart here. I remember them having a great time bank for like the first point. I think we slowed them down a little on second point, and then a decent amount on third. Give me 1 second, because I forgot to quit Discord so that alerts don't pop up. I forgot to quit a lot of stuff, actually. Quit Xbox, quit Epic. I gotta shut the auto kind of like turn on stuff for Epic. All right, so we're kind of a little bit spread here. We don't really know where to hold, it looks like, or at least we don't know where we want to be. So let's talk about this point a little bit more. Okay, so let me get a good overhead position. Can I get a good overhead position? All right, this is good. All right, so generally speaking, for Ryan Zarya, you're going to want to have kind of like a positioning here before the enemies can get kind of like pushed ahead. Like if you don't get super hard staggered, you want to be holding kind of like right here in this general kind of like cone area, because there's this wall here that you can use as cover, and then your team can be stretched out amongst the streets phase, and you can have some people on the high ground if possible. This is similar to the first corner on streets phase in Kings Row, right? The distance is very similar. The hold is going to look very similar with some slight adjustments because of this high ground. So generally speaking, you want to get as many people onto the high ground as possible with any composition, I think, just so that you always have the option to drop down, because you can't fly up as Reinhardt. So if you can manage to start on the high ground and then drop down, I think that's great. But you know, Genetic was up here as McCree. I thought that was good. If we get our Ana up here, I think that would be good, because she can kind of play from like this narrow sight line back here and have the high ground and help McCree contest it in this composition specifically. Lucio should be able to traverse on some level back and forth, even though it's going to be difficult because he'll have to come around here, or he'll have to try to come around here or around here or something like that. So Lucio should be able to get back and forth dependent on need, just with some delay. So after this kind of first corner has been cleared, you back up to under bridge, because there's nowhere to really hold in this space in between. You can hold this right side, but if you hold this right side, there's going to be a pretty big disconnect between where you are and where your supports want to be. So if you start backing up and your supports are already here and you go into this cranny right here, the enemy team is going to be able to push into like kind of church and abuse your supports from that side, because you'll be sitting on the right side of the lane, leaving the left side pretty open. If your supports rotate back through the bank, then they're going to leave you for a long time, because this rotation will probably take about like 10 seconds or so without supports, right? Even if you're sped, it'll maybe take like 5 seconds or something, but that's a pretty long time to be without supports if you're getting pushed back. So it's not usually worth it to hold here for those reasons, and probably many more. generally speaking, you're going to want to go under the bridge. Similar to first point, this is like your next choke area. The things to be aware of when you're here are this back flank, right? So people can be coming around through this area pretty much uncontested. So generally speaking, what will happen is instead of positioning 1 or 2 people up here, let's say we would get our McCree Ana up here, right? And they would be able to either play on this side of the church, or they would be able to play like way down here near the mini, and at least keep this high ground cleared for you, right? But that still leaves some space back here, which means the other people would like have to keep an eye on it. So like Tracer would have to occasionally peek it and stuff like that, keep an eye on it. Lucio, keep an eye on it, blah, blah. There's also these windows up here from the church 2nd floor that are great sidelines into the back line. So it's their access point comes from over here. And there's not a lot you can do to prevent the enemies from using this staircase without overextending. But you can at least, like I said, keep these people on the high ground so that they can see easier the people in the church 2nd floor, right? So if you are, let me get rid of the annotation tool. If you are back here, the people who are in the church 2nd floor won't be able to kind of back up to break line of sight like they would be if everybody was down here. So if there was a widow in that window and she was getting poked down, she would just have to walk back a little bit and then she would be like free of any poke or anything like that. But if you're up here, then her backing up doesn't change your line of sight or anything like that. So it's better to kind of like have someone stationed up here because they'll be able to check so many different things, right? They'll be able to check the church. They'll be able to check this well area, or not well area, but mega area back here on coast. They'll be able to check this back high ground as a whole. They'll be able to kind of like keep even with this front high ground if anybody happens to be able to push through it through some freak of nature way. But you should be able to see that because they're going to have to transfer through to bank. The next thing is going to be, paying attention to that transfer through to bank, because if anybody gets into bank, they can come out of this bottom door here into your back line. So you got to really be careful. Honestly, I would actually say like this is probably the tracer spot at this point. If you're holding under bridge, you want to have your tracer in here. Then she'll have access to high ground. She'll have access to your personal backline to appeal for it. And she'll have access to kind of like, if the enemy team is under bridge, she'll have access to the enemy team's backline and stuff like that. So it's just a good rotational area for Tracer. If she really, really, for some reason wants to go this way, she can. It just gives her additional options. Let's say if somebody was retreating back here for the Mega or something like that on kind of like a stagger phase during the fight, she'll be able to do that. So we wind up holding first corner kind of and not really being together for this fight because we don't know where we want to hold. So Genetic goes top, our Reinhardt goes way far forward, Lana is a little bit back with Frosty and John and Complex on kind of like respawning and stuff like that. And we just kind of get split and a little bit bullied here for a second. But getting pushed back, I guess, actually winds up working out for us because we wind up like our Ryan doesn't die, it looks like. Let's go back. Let's look at that a little bit clearer. Why am I over here now? Okay. No, a little bit further. Okay. Okay, so no, our tanks are actually together forward. Genetic is going to rotate to the high ground. They're backing up. Complex comes tat. Frosty is still on respawns. They're kind of pushing forward. This is still a disconnect, though. We need to be either taking this corner or taking the high ground. We're kind of standing in the middle of nowhere, not doing anything in particular. Not holding anywhere in particular. Frosty gets hacked. Okay, so the initial peel was too much, but once the tanks invest, it wasn't a bad peel. The only reason the initial peel was too much was because it was just the Sombra at first. So in this composition, our peeler is generally going to be our Lucio because more often than not, to peel away from the tanks, you're going to need to speed them out of bubble and out of certain areas that the tanks can want to control. So our Lucio here has to be looking to pay attention to when the Sombra is decloaking and like who's the getting hacked or who's in the most danger to speed them out of that area or away from the Sombra, because the tanks are going to dive that target after the Sombra hacks them. So Genetic doesn't really need to be peeling here unless he's within like ideal turnaround range and can still be dealing damage and stuff like that. What winds up working out is that our tanks weren't holding too far forward. They weren't holding the appropriate forward positioning, like they weren't guiding the team forward. So everybody who was back wasn't too far from the tanks. So our tanks were kind of like sitting around, not doing anything, not going too far forward. And then there were people who got hacked back here, and then they kind of come back because they're not too far forward. So it works out, but it's not really like we're not holding anything to start, and it's a little bit sloppier than we would kind of like it to be. The reason we don't hold in this kind of canopy area here is because of the positioning it forces Tat to have. So he's kind of standing out in the middle of nowhere throughout this fight, just because like the wall is blocking him from actually seeing us. I have Cheerios today if you hear me kind of like scrunching through a cup. So we push the monkey in, right? Not terrible to chase the monkey down, but once he gets the nade on him, we're not going to be able to finish him. So we have to kind of like reallocate to this outside zone, because then when we continue to hold in here, that has to continue to push around this corner to be able to actually heal anybody. And it's leaving him in this very like no man's zone. So if people start pressuring him, if this Hanzo jumps out to here and starts shooting at him, there's nowhere for him to go, no one to save him, nothing for him to be able to do, except hope that the enemies miss their shots. So it's a little bit of a bad positioning because it forces our supports to have bad positioning. It's not necessarily bad for the tanks, but it is bad for the team. Good chase by Frosty. I like the aggression. He gets the mega, so it's a little bit unfortunate, but I like the aggression. The only thing is watch your retreat zone. So like you kind of like go back to where you last saw the team, but it's almost always to go back a little bit further back from where you saw the team, especially on a fight that we seem to be losing. So if you see a lot of like the kill feed just popping off, even if it's trading back and forth or you can't tell who's dying, just go to the area behind your team. Not where your team used to be, because you weren't in the fights. You couldn't see where they went or what they were doing or anything like that. So until you get a little bit better at kind of like keeping track of silhouettes through walls and watching the kill feed to tell who's doing what and understanding what our plays are, just play that a little bit conservatively if you're trying to escape from a fight, because you were already low and then the diva just caught you out. So I think we tried to recontest this, or we talked about it, but we just didn't. I don't remember exactly. I do remember we had a recontest like that where we nanoed, but it might have just been King's Road defense that we did that. Okay, nope, we did it here too. So we just need to go in a little bit faster here. I'm not exactly sure what was happening. One of those situations again where the comms I guess would really help out. So Greedy, we should set that out after we're done with this.
I remember it was like they were talking about like, okay, let's go in, and then like they didn't all push in, so then the tank stayed back. That's all I remember, and that's when they let them have the point.
Okay, so this recontest would have been good because it would have just given us like, so on third point here. Yep.
I remember what happened. It was I think it was SCT saying are we retesting or contesting? And then I think everyone was like, go in, go. But I guess we were late.
Yeah.
Okay. So STT. As the Reinhardt, in these recontest situations, you really need to have a little bit more of like a we go or no type of mentality, and it all comes down to you, because the supports can say go, but they can't go. They're depending on you to go. So that kind of like chain of communication takes too much time sometimes. As Reinhardt, you need to be like, do we have the resources? Yes. Let's go. I'm going. Let's go. Are we here? Let's go. You don't need to always check with your team every single time. Sometimes you need to just check within yourself that you have whatever you need to stay alive for a few seconds and that you're not completely alone, and then you can just go. Because your team is pretty much here. Like, look, Genetic was so ready to go. That's how ready to go Genetic was. And you just didn't go because I think maybe you were waiting for kind of like, there was just a delay and like, should we go? Yeah, let's go. And then you were like,
yeah,
well,
I was waiting for the Lucio boost.
Yeah, you got to just go in this situation. Because you starting to move will probably trigger Complex to amp. But I can't comment on Complex not amping because you're not moving. So there's no reason for him to amp yet. Also, for this situation, Frosty, if everybody's saying go and you don't see your tank moving, you can take it upon yourself as Tracer to touch. I want to see right now. Do you have the blinks? Where are you? No, but you have the blinks there. It looks like, unless that was broken. All right, whatever. But you have the blinks to try to touch, and even just a second of touch. So contest lingers for a little bit in this game. I don't know exactly for how long it lingers. I think it's like half a second more. But even if you touch for like just a split second, the contest might have lingered enough for like the tanks to get back on. You might have been able to kind of like just crouch around cart for a little bit to just like give your team time to get there. I could say the same thing for Lucio, but Lucio should really be working with the Reinhardt to try to get him in. Here, Complex, you should be speeding your team out, not healing them, because you want to speed disengages as much as you want to speed engages. This is also in part of like Complex calming a little bit more of like, we're getting out. He's just, you need to just take the team and like be like, all right, come on, children, we're leaving. You get Nano, but I still don't like the charge. It's just too far from the team. I would have liked the Nano to just be with a team fight where you were already in range. So I understand trying to get value out of the Nano, but you're very, very deep in there. And you charge very far away from the team. If they were better about kind of communicating or recognizing your aggression and your willingness to kind of charge away from the team or charge back into the team, they probably would have punished it a little bit better. Because as much as I'm talking to you guys about like recognizing the habits of the Sombra and stuff like that, the other teams that we're going against that are going to be better and better and better are going to start being good enough to recognize your habits as well. So does the Reinhardt charge backwards every time I jump into his team? Guys, I'm just going to jump into his team. As soon as he charges backwards, just collapse on his team because their defenses are going to be like shit. And that's like something that's going to get punished more and more. So this team hasn't recognized that you keep doing it, so they're not going to punish it. They might punish it by accident, but they're not going to punish it. Yeah, all right, we've talked enough about your pins. Generally speaking, and I think I've said this before, but I'll say it again, you want to pin to a wall that's close to you. So you're not necessarily looking at the target you're trying to pin, but you're looking at the zone you're pinning into. So if I'm holding here as Reinhardt and somebody moves into the space on my left, that's a perfect opportunity to pin right here, because then you can just shuffle back into your position as if nothing happened, even if you missed it. It's not necessarily about who you're pinning, more so that, you know, like they have to respect the threat of the pin and that the fact that they can't move directly into like certain areas with you, because you'll be able to one-shot them with pin. Okay, so let's talk about third point. So where you guys are holding is fine for right now, just because the cart stopped there. Generally speaking, this isn't the space that you want to reset to because there's too many ways to get around. So you can kind of come through this bank area back here and be able to punish from back here. You can come from over here and go to the high ground if you want. There's a lot of teams that'll run this route where they'll like come through this area up the stairs and kind of like go through that high ground. They can come down main if they wanted to and split 2 different ways around the pole. So there's all sorts of ways to attack this, which is why it's usually not the best hold, because 2 of the ways directly lead to behind you and give discrete advantages of the high ground. So generally a better hold kind of like formation as a whole is to have like 1 tank up here, something like that, with another tank who's kind of either wandering around here or standing up here. And then you have your DPS, 1 DPS down here, and then 1 DPS under here as well, so that it kind of looks like a little bit of a trap, right? When they work their way into you, you can kind of back up and everybody can collapse from the high ground a little bit. And then you can kind of like stake your hold here. And then this zone is just a death box where everybody's looking down at the enemy team. So that's one way to hold it. Another way to hold it is to just hold it, I guess, fairly normally by holding each of the corners as they proceed forward. But the important part is really going to be when they get to this last stage right here. Because once you get to this last stage, and they're kind of right about to take the point, the enemies are going to have control of all of this high ground space, pretty much, because although you'll have access back here, chances are if they've pushed it here, they're already going to have pushed you off of this high ground. Because if you were utilizing the high ground, possibly you should be able to hold them to underneath that zone. So if, hey, it's a little person. I just noticed there's a little person right here. All right, anyway. So if you wind up getting pushed back to this point, you have to make better usage of kind of like this space over here. Oh, it's also good to note that there's a little, I'll show in a second, but there's a space over here that certain characters can get into. But you want to be making use of kind of like all this space back here to kind of space out your support and DPS, and only have your tanks contesting the cart, using this side towards spawn to contest, because they don't want to get split from respawners and stuff like that, you know? So we can like position our Ana back here, have our Lucio kind of like in here while riding around this wall and stuff like that. We can have our McCree kind of back here or over here. Tracer defies most of the positioning rules. She can be over here if she wants. She could be over here if she wants. She could be over here if she wants. But in terms of zones to play from, because I've been kind of categorizing Tracer's positioning in terms of zones. Okay. I know I hit the right buttons. I don't know what happened there. So this mini is an all right space to play from, because you'll have access to the high ground and you'll have access to the side of their team as well as the back of your team. You can also play from back here as well, because you'll have the option of like kind of like hard aggressing forward or coming around the back. So this is the window that I was talking about. So any of you can drop down from this window to put pressure from behind. I'm sure that in the future, Genetic or Greedy will drop through here to get an aggressive flank from behind. But Widowmaker, Pharah can grapple up here, Genji double jump back here, Hanzo can wall climb up here, Reaper can TP up here. So it's a good flank route to keep in mind, and to kind of be checking every now and again. Just as kind of like we need to stop them from just being able to use that at all, because it's not hard to kind of like check that area, and it's actually really hard for most DPS to push in there properly, because if a Reaper TP's up there and then you push him out, he can't go up there for like another 12 seconds or something like that. So it's just a good zone to check. You guys aren't holding the worst positioning. I just would have liked you to be using the high ground a little bit more. We see Genetic is going up there right now. Unfortunately gets forced out. No support up there, so you can't really do anything with it. This is interesting because this is okay. No, she was on the high ground, so that's a little bit better, because I thought she just translocated like right here and nobody reacted to her for a second. But look at the high ground control. Their emphasis on being able to use the high ground comes from both their composition and probably partially their map knowledge and understanding of how things work, right? I want to see how Genetic got there. He's already dead again. Too far. Alright. Oh, he kind of just walks into their team. That's pretty funny, actually. That is just to give you a prime example. That is the level of team we're playing against right now. A Genetic just walked into their team. He's just there. Just like, nah, I'm gonna go for your Ana. Because nobody else on the enemy team is paying attention. So you gotta be a little bit better than them. Cart control is pretty important during these kind of downtime. So generally it comes down to one of the tanks being able to put pressure on cart pretty much consistently throughout a fight. So there's some fights where let them take cart control because we can't hold that area anyway. But where the cart is a perfectly holdable location, and like nobody's putting any sorts of pressure. So it's definitely not on the Ana here. Our Zarya could be putting pressure on the cart a little bit more. That way our Ana can have better line of sight on her too. Reinhardt, wait, who is this person stacked up? Yeah, our Reinhardt could be contesting cart here. Tracer or Lucio, any one person could be contesting cart. It just needs to be one of you. I prefer it to be the tanks because they have the most longevity, the largest health pool. So Tat is playing from a position here so that he can pocket somebody basically who's going to be contesting cart, and he can see people who are underneath. So he's a little bit further forward than you may want him, but because nobody's on cart, the enemy team is just able to push him because there's nobody in between them and him. Suddenly there is, but no. There being someone there earlier would keep pressure off of him, make it easier for him to hit his shots and stuff like that. Make it so that the enemies don't get as much, as little free space as possible. You want to minimize the amount of free space that you're giving the enemies. I'm in the ceiling. Pretty sure we lose this fight, but I think if I'm gonna say right now, it's just because they have high ground. It's simply because they have high ground and they can choose when they want to drop onto us and how long they want to poke us for. Like, we can't do anything about their positioning. Genetic is gonna try to go up there, but like you can't push into that as a McCree, you know. And there's not a lot we can do. They finally start dropping down, but half their team is still on the high ground. And now that when they want to take the fight, now that they're activating their rally, they're really pushing into us. They've chosen that this is a good time for them. So it really starts with the use of the high ground here. I think it doesn't end there for sure, but it definitely starts there. All right, questions, comments, concerns, ideas. Anyone?
Score 3-3. Switching sides.
Nods slowly. Okay. All right, so let's go on to the next one. Yeah, so Volskaya is gonna be. We're gonna do Volskaya, and it's gonna kind of be.
I have a question.
Answer.
Yeah. So, should we have taken high ground there, like on the third point? Would that be the best?
We should have partial coverage of the high grounds. So we should have, like, you know, our McCree up there with maybe like our Lucio, or if you can somehow get a good sight line up there, our Ana as well. Or we can have our McCree up there with our Lucio and our Zarya, so that at least if they push up there, we can put some sort of pressure on them. But if you put your whole team up there and they push under, then we're going to have to drop on them. Not a terrible thing to have to do. So if they constantly push high ground, maybe you want to think about putting the entire team up there, yeah. But I think at the very least, partial coverage, you know? What did you say, Complex?
Me and Crew were up there.
Yeah, but you and Cree were up
couldn't do
there.
anything.
Yeah, you and Cree were up there, though, but it was like, so the reason that I say Ana and McCree, or like McCree, Lucio, and Zarya, is because Lucio, for the most part, is a speed bot. He can boot people off the high ground, sure, but you're not really going to have any impact on stopping their push from coming through. You can just kind of like speed McCree away if they get too close. But at least if you have a Zarya, you can like keep pressure on them and defend.
I remember when they're going up high ground, SCT wanted to go behind them with high ground too, but I think I stopped them from going behind them, and I said to play on point. Would it have been better to go behind them and go on high ground?
No, because it would have been like chasing them. Like, you would have always been behind them. So unless you get the Lucio speed boost and kind of like really push around, that's a long push. So like, let's go back. Dorado.
Well, maybe if we went like the left side, like underground, not like where second point is. But
So we're talking about third point, right?
And
we're talking about last fight?
No, like second to last.
Yeah, so he's talking about those two poles are right there. Because they had taken high ground, and I saw the cart was still behind. It hadn't gone past and started going uphill, so I made a call. I was like, why don't we stay behind the poles? That way we have cover from high ground, so they can't really just pop us.
No,
These
behind.
poles?
No. Before this.
Well, he's talking about these poles, because he called. Yeah, he called this. I remember that call in particular. But what are you talking about?
Me?
Yeah, John.
No, when they took high ground. No, it's not last fight. It's like when I antied them. When Genetic went on the stairs where Mega is, or Mini. I forgot which one that was called. It's
Okay.
Backmore. It's the
Well,
Backmore.
I don't think we're gonna be able to find it right now, but let's say they're on high ground, right? They're up here. And
You
we're-
can find it. I think it's like right before this. It's like literally.
Yeah. Okay.
I think so.
My frames are gone again for some reason.
It's high noon.
It's when Genetic went to the stairs, like
Okay, I know what
on
you're
their
talking about.
side. Oh yeah, it's like after this. I think after this fight.
Yeah, it is the next fight because Genetic just walks into them, and then when he comes, I think we win-ish this fight. Yeah, they get cart distance, but I think at the end of it we win it. This was what SDT was talking about, where he was saying hold pillars. So just for everybody's kind of knowledge, because he made this call out a few times on a few different maps, and I think it's a perfectly fine call out. What were you calling it? Because were you calling it pillars, SDT?
Not in this instance. This instance, no. I was trying to aggress and contest.
No,
I think
no,
it was
no.
right after this.
What were you calling these? Because you called this on Volskaya too. You called the lone pillar on second point something. but I
On
can't
second
remember.
point, yeah. Because I remember you mentioned on Volskaya, you mentioned that we could use the pillars to keep them off point, and I was thinking, okay, let's hold the pillar. That way, they don't just get an easy push onto us on point.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea in terms of like mid-fight calls, because then you can at least bunker up here a little bit, kind of use the mini, and they can like push around you, sure, like from the high grounds. But if they're already kind of like half dropped, then it gives you a good bunker position where you say like, let's come fight us. It's kind of the thing that I was talking about on our attack, where it's like you can turtle together and kind of like out DPS their team just in terms of the tank line alone. So yeah, I think that's fine if that's something that you guys want to do. I don't think it's somewhere you want to start though, because I think it leaves you very vulnerable to them kind of like slowly poking at you, or trying to like work their way into how they want, because it's a very passive and back type of position. But if you want to use it mid-fight to kind of like get a different look, regroup, or stabilize in certain ways, I think that's good. But to keep going to what John was saying, and Frosty, I see your comments, so I'll get to it after we get through all of this stuff.
I think it was this right here. Yeah,
Are you
it was
talking
this
about
right
this?
here. Yeah.
Okay, so anti. All right, cool. So what is your question? Let's start from here.
No, I was saying that SST wanted to go behind them. And
So
he wanted to go from the right side because he was already pushing to the right side where he is right now. But would have it been better to I mean, I know, yeah, he wants to go there. It would be faster to go left side, right?
yeah, it would have been faster to go left side. I think if you go left side with Lucio speed boost, that's a fine idea, because I think you can catch up to them, because they don't have a Lucio. But if you go right side, going right side is definitely the wrong call, because this distance is just way too far to catch up to them, even with Lucio speed boost. They're going to be sitting on cart, and you're going to be coming around on the high grounds, and they're going to be all but capping point by the time you get to them. So
but Anna is like right there too. Would have been better to push, because he's just like.
You might have picked the Ana, but like I said, the rest of their team 3 sit on cart while you're climbing the stairs.
Right. Okay.
Which is the only.
I think I wanted to because I already saw Frosty over there, and so in my head I was like, all right, I have Frosty, I can take the Zarya, and then I'm still in the line of sight of the Ana, so we can just basically just pinch him in.
So,
but yeah, it would have taken too long, just like you said.
You should never use Tracer as kind of like a reference point of team positioning. Because like I brought it up several times already, but like everybody has set positions that they pretty much need to play at high levels, otherwise they're throwing. Tracer kind of just doesn't. Up until like Grandmaster, like if you play Tracer and you're just a god at Tracer, you could exist anywhere you want in the map. It just doesn't matter. But there are certain areas that are better for Tracer, but they're not particularly better for Tracer. They're just good areas in the map in general, you know? So you should never like look at a Tracer and be like, well, the Tracer's over there, so I can exist there because my team is there. Like Tracer, look how far Frosty is from the rest of the team. And honestly, this is pretty good positioning because she could attack the Ana and still have access to get back to the team or rotate under or do anything from this position just because she's in the middle of a juncture. But as Reinhardt, if you were here, I would bench you. No, I'm kidding. But that would be bad. That's bad positioning for Reinhardt. So you shouldn't be using Tracer as kind of like a checkpoint as like, oh, our team is partially over there. No, our Tracer is over there. And she can do whatever the fuck she wants. As long as she pops off. Wait, never mind. Okay. Wait, so do you not want me to, are you, did I somehow answer your question or did your question somehow get answered at least? Frosty?
Oh, yeah. Oh,
no, I'm talking to Frosty. Yeah. I'm going to talk about it anyway. So in terms of Tracer disrupting things on the high ground, I think if you can disrupt anything that the enemies are doing, you should try your best to do it, especially as Tracer who has so much versatility in her kit and the ability to kind of exist anywhere she wants. The only thing is if you're fighting into high ground, you're at a disadvantage because you have to like push up the stairs. They can see your head hitbox before you can really see them at all. You kind of have a harder time blinking on stairs as Tracer. You get stuck on stairs a lot of times. Just as kind of like a general Tracer thing, don't blink on stairs as much as you can avoid it because you'll get stuck on them. So like it's not a terrible thing to try to go up there and disrupt them, especially when this anti was hit. I probably would have been very aggressive into that once it was called. Like anytime an anti is hit as Tracer, you can kind of just like, as long as you have blinks and recall, just dive in there, try to finish them off and then recall out. But it's not necessarily like the easiest thing to do. So if you wanted to play it slow and wait until they drop, like if you're going to wait till they drop, you can like sit under this area right here, this mini area. And once they drop, you can kind of just like swarm around them and collapse. It'll cause them to like look in two directions. If your tanks are holding, like, let's say your tanks are holding like here, and we have our McCree and then our Tracer kind of like under here. And then once they start dropping, the McCree and Tracer shoot them from behind while the tanks push into them. Then it creates a lot of chaos and it creates that kind of like pincer maneuver that we really want to try to execute that pincer maneuver as much as we can. That two sight lines trying to pressure the enemy is going to create a lot of chaos for their back line and a lot of chaos for their tanks. I'm going to restart my Overwatch because I'm capped at 30 again for some reason. Should only take a second to do that.
I can. I'll tell you how to fix it after you restart. Go in your options.
Options.
And then you see where triple buffering and reduced buffering is. Turn that on.
Oh, okay. Triple buffering.
And then reduce buffering and then apply.
You're crazy. You put on triple buffering?
Me? I do.
Yeah. You play with triple buffering?
Yeah, is that bad?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reduced buffering is good. Triple buffering is, oh my, it puts so much input delay.
Does it? I play fine with it. I guess I play with buffering. Cause there should be like 3 dots on the top left, but also wait, can I see your cap thing in your options? Go to put it on custom.
Yeah, custom and then yeah, apply.
Yeah, that should be fine.
It doesn't go past 60 though.
Not in menu.
Interesting.
Or I guess not at all. I think it's like his GPU.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, my GPU isn't great.
No. It might be limiting on purpose. Like it might be a setting, or you probably have VSync.
Do I have VSync? I think I do have VSync on.
Yeah.
Either way, back to the roof for now. Thank you though. In reference to Frosty saying, what do you call it, that finding the balance between passivity and being aggressive is a journey. For Tracer, that's pretty much like half of her kit is kind of like finding that balance between do I go in or do I not. More often than not, I think it's better to be aggressive, but I say that because there's nothing that you can learn from doing nothing except like, I could say like, oh, you could have gone in there, and then you have to try to go in, and then I have to be like, well, you can go in by doing this and this and change this up, you know. So I think it just in general, it's better to be aggressive because I think you just get more experience that way. All right. So I can be ballsy tonight? Yeah, go for it. I mean, if they're shutting you down, then you have to start thinking about how they're shutting you down and how to work around it, you know? Greedy gets picked. I like this push. I don't exactly remember what was happening with this push, but I do remember you guys just being like, okay, we're just gonna go this way and just going, which was kind of nice. In terms of like this positioning here, so when you get to this spot, generally what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to go straight into this building. Regardless of what your actual plan is, go into this building. Take a second to chill in here. Get the people who are good on high ground to go high ground, and then the rest of you push out. So in this situation, in this context, I know we wind up swapping kind of like compositions, but you can send Genetic, the Hanzo, Sigma, and your Ana to the high ground, and just do a 3-3 split where STT Complex and Frosty push underneath, and then what do you call it? You have 3 people sitting up here because this will let Sigma use his shield actively to protect people. The Ana can get good antis and good angles for sleeps on the tanks. The Hanzo just gets good angles in general. Sigma can spam over shields and stuff like that. And then he still has the option to drop with his kinetic grasp to eat damage for the enemy for the Reinhardt. And then Reinhardt can just aggressively push in with speed boost while all of that pressure is being applied from above. On top left, there should be 1 dot next to the FPS counter. What? Okay.
I'm just talking about something else.
Oh, okay. So I don't think this was bad. I think this push was perfectly fine. I think we should have tried to wait in this garage area. This is garage. For Genetic to get back because he gets picked. But the next thing I would say then is just kind of like go into this area, which I don't have a name for this room personally. I know there are names for all of these rooms, but call it workshop, I guess. Oh, John, what did you call these? You sleep somebody over here. You
Logs.
called this.
I slept Sombra.
All right, new terminology. This is new for me too. Logs. Get it? Because there's logs. Yeah. Was that? Did you just want to make that one sound and that was it?
Yeah.
All right. So yeah, you guys could have gone over here and maybe like sent your Sigma back or Lucio back to help Genetic along. But pushing while you're 1 down and then also just not using that second to take advantage of the high ground access that you have already kind of like gained or fought for, it's just a little bit wasteful. You're just fighting at a disadvantage. I'm not sure why you kind of like doubled back on that small flank there, but I would have liked to see it, Frosty.
I cannot be stopped.
Oh, right. That's crazy. So there's no like record with the pause. Everything's just smooth in this because you guys got paused for a second after somebody disconnected. People say terms like "I'm cool." I don't know what you're talking. All right, so different push this time. Okay, this isn't bad so far. Oops. Didn't want to click my mouse, but I did. Get hit with the anti. Get hit with the EMP. Stabilize slightly. So one thing I will say, Chloe, about playing Diva, one, you don't want to play her like Zarya. You want to play her like Zarya with mobility. So you should be kind of like getting up here a little bit to at least try to like put pressure from behind, and then dropping down as soon as you like people start shooting you with any type of real damage. And then you can like defense matrix your Reinhardt in like the same way you would use your bubbles and stuff like that. But the major difference is kind of like that fly to the high ground. It also partially becomes your responsibility to clear high ground. So let's say, for instance, like let's take this Ashe. This isn't the best example, but let's say if we were pushing under here instead, you would have the responsibility of flying up there to kind of like put pressure on the Ashe and get her to fuck off, because you have the mobility and you have the health pool to do it. The other thing is call out when you're demeched. So like call it out the instant you get demeched, because you're pretty much dead when you're demeched. Like Baby Diva can have some impact on the fight. She you get a kill on the Ana there. But like you're not a real hero. You're just a human walking around with the fucking pistol in a game where there's literally an ape that swats people around. So call you demeched, because it matters to your tank, it matters to your support. It means something different to let's say like your Lucio, because Diva's usually the primary person. Like she's a really good peel, kind of like character. Just because she has defense matrix and she's so fast and she has such a big health pool, she can like turn around and help somebody out really easy if they're getting attacked. But if you're demeched and you can't do that, then somebody on your team has to be like, oh, we don't have our Diva to peel, so I have to pick up the slack. Lucio, Tracer, Hanzo, somebody else has to say in their head like, oh, I gotta go help, because our Diva can't right now. Complex just styling on him. Good take all in all. I like the change up in terms of like attacking left side and then attacking right side. It would have just probably been nice to see you guys try twice before changing it up. But the right side works. I don't know if there was a specific call that was made out for the reason that you pushed right instead of left, but it was good.
Yeah, we most of us were saying like let's take high ground, because we called out that the healers and the DPS were on the top right in the beginning, and we're like, okay, most of them are on the high ground, so let's try to get high ground on the right side. But I think half of us just went right side, but not on high ground. You know where like the mini is, like inside right side, yeah.
So it's really important first that when you make a call as a team that you do at least the bare minimum of kind of like what the call is. So you call take high ground, so take high ground. Like don't I mean if you wanna call like, oh, let's split, let's put 3 on high ground, then that's one thing. But if you say like let's take high grounds, you're all going high ground. Everybody's going high ground. Everyone's going high ground. Because that's what the call is. So that's what everybody should be expecting in their head. And you should all try to fulfill each other's expectations as much as possible. Unless your expectation is that you're gonna suck, don't fulfill that expectation. I can't have that shit.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it worked out anyway when we went this right side, because most of this dropped anyway. So
yeah, but I don't like it worked out anyway.
Yeah,
it's very contextual and it only works once. One time I called Heaven, which in Valorant, yeah. So in Valorant, if somebody calls Heaven is high ground. Or it's usually the most important high ground as far as I understand it.
Yeah. We were on Hollywood and I was calling Heaven on defense.
That's hilarious.
Everybody looking at you like, yo, what's this man talking about? Heaven? This nigga really putting in his religion right now? That crazy.
Oh my god. Tat, what happened here? Why didn't you go with the team? What happened here? Okay, so you scale
there's
it.
that fire.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I was waiting for the tanks to come. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Shout outs to Complex for calling out Help Your Ana. Thank you.
Yeah, good calls, good calls, good calls. Big shatters on the enemy side. No, I'm kidding. I don't like this pin. I don't like this pin because if he doesn't counterpin you, you end up over here. We're gonna look at Frosty in a second because I want to know how she got over here. But you end up way, way out of position. That's a game I can actually solo carry in. All right, but now I want to kind of like look at what Frosty was doing because where did she come from? So generally speaking, when you have kind of like extra downtime, you want to use that to get yourself into like deeper, more troubling position for the enemies. So on this map, it's going to be on your left. There's a staircase. Need to be right back. Okay. On your left is a staircase, which will take you up to the high grounds where you could pressure the Ash and attack them from behind. So I think this would have been kind of like that everybody's getting together would have been a good chance for you to do that. But I definitely want to see where you go regardless. Like, what is your... Okay, so you narrowly avoid the shatter. Still crazy. Okay, I don't mind that. Because you're just getting an alternate angle. You're ready to push in with the team. Perfectly fine. I just really like high grounds. And I really want to emphasize it because it's really noticeable how much you guys don't realize how good high ground is sometimes because... or how much you haven't really thought about the high grounds in the game, because there's a lot of times where you guys will like be walking somewhere where there's perfectly good access to high grounds and you just won't take it. And it's just kind of like you're beelining to the point or something like that, or you're just like mental AFKing and not looking at the high grounds itself. But there's just been a few times that I've kind of like really noticed it. So I'm going to keep bringing it up that we should be trying to control high ground, trying to take high ground as much as possible, because it's really important for a lot of maps and for a lot of characters. So right here, there was a bad call, and the call was don't touch Bob. Normally that's a good call, but Bob was the only one here, and he kind of just stopped you guys from capping point for quite a while. Nice boosters, nice boosters. So Bob, yeah, is able to stay there so long that they get back, and we don't get anything for it. Yeah, the one time, right? It's all right though, because you guys listened to the call. It was just an unfortunate call at an unfortunate time. Probably could have gotten a tick if you just woke him up and burned him down. Like if you just hit all those easy headshots and use all your damage cooldowns on him to burn him as quick as possible, you probably get a tick out of this instead of nothing, which is what you're getting right now, unfortunately. Have we talked about second point attacking this yet? I don't think we have, right? Okay, so attacking this, there's generally 3 ways that you can go about it. There's no real dominant way to go about it, I don't think. There's nothing that's kind of like been the main way of attacking this point. It's kind of just up to your composition and up to your tank line and how they can aggress. So first one is down main. So if you're going down main, it's going to be a similar checkpoint to what you would want to use on defense. So on defense, you want to start here, and then you want to retreat here and hold here, and then you want to retreat here and hold here, and then you want to be able to go back to spawn or have anybody come back from spawn. So on attack, you want to start here and push out to here, and then push out to here, and then push around and into here, or here if the enemies for some reason decide to split off that way. That's just kind of the main way of going about it. Like down main, you can go down right where you come over here and then you kind of get this space cleared for yourself. And if the enemies are smart, they're going to retreat this way. But likely they're just going to scatter in 3 different directions. If this is the case, then you are going to want to probably just poke down the targets who are without their tanks, right? Because if they split in 3 directions, there's only 2 tanks, so there has to be somebody who's off on their own. So just kind of like poke them out, and if they retreat behind, or like let's say if somebody retreats around here or like disappears around here or something like that, then you want to start like touching point a little bit and trying to slowly gain like control of some of the zone without exposing too much of yourself. So if you push hard in any one direction, you expose your back to the other two areas. So you can take advantage of the fact that they don't have any defenses on two of their zones by kind of like touching point and forcing them to be aggressive onto you. Because if you're on point and like actively contesting, then they also have to actively contest, you know? So the last way is just going to be the way you guys went, which is kind of like this left side here. You can choose to go high ground or you can choose to go low ground. I don't think it matters too much unless they have somebody on the high ground who's absolutely dominating. Then you're going to want to kind of like contest this high ground and try to clear them off, because if they have a hard carry widow or something like that, you're going to want to get rid of them. Now there's a last way, the biggest brain way, right? This is the most difficult way to be able to like push this point on attack. So first, let me come out of pen so I can get a better camera angle for this. So the last way is going to be by using this kind of like elevator area right here, right? So it's probably better to be on this side. Okay, this is good. So the last way is going to involve having a Lucio or a Mei, right? You take the elevator up, you walk across here, you speed boost, run and jump across here, hope that everybody makes it, and then you control this side of the high ground above where the enemies prefer retreating to, and you have the option of dropping onto them whenever you want.
Could we use a Mei wall as a bridge?
Yeah, that's why I said you could use a Lucio or a Mei. The thing with the Mei wall is that like it's just not the best time. Like it's not the best use of a Mei wall. It's fine. It's just not the best use of a Mei wall. I guess the very last one though, just to be aware of, is just taking a sim teleporter over across here. Not a bad strat if you have somebody who likes playing sim or is good at sim. Can put a lot of sudden pressure onto the enemies. Is probably best to use in the last minute of your clock. So if like you're running, out of time and stuff like that, you don't have ultimates or anything, it's a good surprise strategy to try to throw at them. Unless you have like a real sim player and are playing for the sim player, I wouldn't do something like that. We don't seem to have anybody who plays sim, you know? So I would just only do that if you kind of want to like mix it up or throw them a curveball or something like that. Once every 5 games or something stupid. Once every 5 games of Volskaya, let's say that. So those are just kind of different ways to attack. Note that throughout all of them, there's kind of like corners that you consistently take control of, and those are going to be similar corners that you want to take control of on defense. So like there's going to be times you want to control here, times you want to control here, times you want to control here, or back here. I don't know how many times you're going to want to control over here, because this leads to a pit and is also like this side isn't as good to walk back on because it's just too open to the enemy team. If you're respawning, this side is a better respawn walk back in terms of time and safety. So generally you want to be holding kind of like this side of the map up here. It's just a little bit better. Not by much, but a little bit better. Okay, so let's talk about us again. I don't mind the bomb if the team is kind of like aggressing heavily, but the bomb comes out, you get to pick. It was just a little bit haphazard, and there wasn't enough, like the team wasn't fast enough. I would like the team to be a little bit faster on that engage when the bomb was thrown in. Also, in terms of bombs, let's just talk about the general. Actually, I'll talk about that after this, because I'm just gonna talk about Volskaya attack. I think really nice pulse. Okay, so we wound up getting it. They kind of like C9 because I think their ball was supposed to be the one, like I think they were calming like, oh, I'll touch it, ball will touch or whatever like that, and then Frosty gets the pulse and they kind of just. Yeah, like everybody else is really low and nobody wants to touch and they just kind of fall apart. So good play, Frost. You really opened that one up for us. Just talk about Diva Bombs really quick because this is honestly my favorite thing to kind of do in this game. So generally I get a friend to do this with me so that I can see kind of like exactly where people get hit. There's also a workshop code in that video that I sent. I don't remember the code off the top of my head, but this is kind of like old school, I guess, in terms of like before workshop codes, what you could do. So Diva, right? You go to ultimate ability, self-destruct to spawn with ultimate ready, right? Enabled. And then you can just go to any map that you want to just throw around the bomb. So let's go to Volskaya since we're on Volskaya. So Diva counts as technically like in this game mode spawning when she gets back in mech. So if you throw your ultimate with just turning on that one setting, you have your ultimate as soon as you get back in mech. So let's talk about general Diva things, right? I don't mind the type of bomb that you did. It's not a bad type of bomb. So the bomb that you did was you flew for a little bit and then you kind of just threw it up a little and you got a little bit of a hop distance. It's the most ineffective part of this is it's just that it's predictable, right? So from this perspective, if you wanted to just do a bomb that was going to clear, it would have been nice to see you look up about 45 degrees. So this is looking up 90 degrees. This is looking at 0 degrees. This is about looking up like 45 degrees, looking halfway between straight and all the way up. And just instantly throw your bomb. So the benefit of this is that it blows up in air and is also able to kind of clear the high ground as well as hit the low ground. Generally speaking, with your bombs, you want to try to zone as much area as possible, which can mean, you know, getting it to detonate in midair or getting it to detonate in a specific unpredictable spot or something like that. Another thing that you could have done is thrown it like purposely to the, let's not talk about it. Nobody talk about it. Thrown it purposely to the right to try to get the enemies to push to the left side. So if you had kind of thrown it over here, you would have forced them to either die to it on the right or push over to the left to survive. You could also use your bomb to clear backspace over here, the similar way we were talking about with the, what was it? It was the Shock Philly game, I'm pretty sure, where one of the players kind of like threw the bomb over here like this and cleared this backspace so that the enemies had to, you know, push forward or die back there. But generally speaking, if you want to play Diva, it's really important to make sure that your bomb mechanics are good. So
I know a good one.
Nose dive bombs. What's a good one?
Like letting it right on the wall and like timing it so as soon as like the booster is done or like the bomb's about to explode, it comes out. So if
Yeah,
you
I
like
was
hit it
trying to
up
do
against the
that.
wall.
I was
Yeah.
practicing that yesterday, and I was like, I cannot do it.
Yeah, like that.
Yeah.
Like there's a good spot in the back if you go straight and turn around after you get in there. Go back out. Yeah. Like using these two are really good. That's what for me at least. And my friend who's like really good Diva player, he told me about these spots are good. Or like you want to aim it a little bit closer to the wall so it takes like time for the boosters to end.
So like right here or?
Yeah, look up slightly.
I can't
yeah, that's
time.
good.
I was trying to time it, and I was like, I cannot time. I was practicing it.
It's like I can't. I have to show it to you, but I can't. I
Okay.
can't like explain it. Like, it's like you gotta make sure like the boosters. Oh wow.
Oh, okay.
It depends on how you look. It depends how you look at.
Like kind of talking about like that?
Yeah. But you don't have to control it. You just like let it go, and it does it by itself.
Okay. So yeah, that's honestly with the Diva bombs too. That's what it comes down to a lot of the times. Is like looking at what other people do and kind of like, okay, with Ononades, right? So if you want to have a set nade, which is something that you like throw so that it lands at a specific time, you'll see John do it a lot. If you watch our VOD reviews, you'll just see nades in the middle of the air all of a sudden. It's just because he's throwing a set nade, which is a really high arcing thing. So you want to have set bombs, which you're gonna basically like. You're gonna be like, okay, what if I was starting here, and then I'm gonna look at this corner, and I'm gonna let my boosters run for 25%, and I'm gonna throw it. And then where does that land? And then it always lands there, and let's say I like that. So let's say we're in game and we're backing up and retreating, and I'm like, all right, I want to clear that spot. Do the same bomb again. Same thing every time, you know? So it's like set things that you already know, which is why I suggest this game mode, because then you can, or not game mode, but just this setting to just kind of like go around, 30 Diva Bomb. I think it's personally a satisfying thing to do, which is why I've done it so much.
Did you just flick the Diva Bomb?
You mean like, just like flick it?
Yeah, you literally just what you just did. You just flicked it.
Yeah, I mean, you could do plenty of stuff with Diva Bombs.
Damn, coach.
Playing
Playing Whittle so much you can flick Diva Bombs now too. That's lit.
Nah, yeah, but you generally want to be like trying to find what you're comfortable with. I would start on one map that you really like, and just kind of like throw bombs around it. Just be like, wee, in your like in between games and stuff like that. Just throw bombs around it, see where they land. And if you can get people to be like, okay, can you stand there for me? I want to see if I can land a bomb from like over here or something like that. Or can you stand up there? I want to see if I'm back here, can I hit up there and like actually kill people with it? Just a really good practice thing to do. Okay, so I'm gonna stop here. I wanted to go longer, but I can't. I'm sorry. I gotta get back to my work.
So good.
Have essays to do for some reason. My professors want to be funny. But we have a scrim tonight. Do not forget about it. Be on time. Please, 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 please. This is the last day of our trial. So yes, 7. You can be as late as 7:30, but I promise you don't want to do that tonight. You're going to want to talk to me as much as possible. Try to find out as much information as you can, because this is going to be a higher ranked team than we've been playing. Last day of trial. Yeah, you guys would try it out. Now you were trialing. This is the last day of trials.
But what does trials mean? Like, what are we doing? Like trials of Osiris and Destiny? Like, what's going on?
No, it's just a matter of kind of like seeing how you play over time, seeing how you engage with the coaching and stuff like that, seeing your responsiveness to things, seeing how you work with one another, et cetera, et cetera. There's more to the team atmosphere than just your pure skill, and all I see in tryouts is your skill. So,
okay, and this is okay. Okay,
so
like
everybody is, it's kind of like a trialing phase where I get to see, and yeah, stuff like that. So I'll be seeing you guys tonight. I'll try to upload both of the things from yesterday and today onto YouTube. I didn't get to do the one yesterday because I'm stupid and slow. Kind of just forgot. I'm sorry. So yeah, thanks for being here. If you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns, feel free to message me. I'll be doing homework, honestly, for most of the day, but that doesn't mean I can't respond every now and again. So I'll see you guys.
See ya.